It was pure evil. It was.
What's up, everybody? God, that was badass. Welcome to Scream Stream. We're back. It's been like a month. And we were supposed to go on last night, but then my internet decided to take a crap on me. So, wow, I'm nervous, guys. This is crazy. We're back. It feels good to be back. I got two great friends with me. I got Cody, who I'd like to thank first off for that kick-ass intro. Halloween inspired intro. It looked awesome. And Bryan Lomax, how are you guys doing? Cody, love the mask. Looking great, buddy. How you doing?
Doing great now that I can breathe.
Awesome.
I'm doing just fine, my friend. How are you?
I am good. As you guys know, moving sucks, and I'm still in the pain of it, but I wanted to get a Scream Stream out because of the big news that we just got that Jamie Lee Curtis is coming back. I mean, if you look up to the top right, I got a kill list there. Tons of stuff we're going to talk about. But before we get started, Bryan Lomax is in the house. He just finished up his Halloween series, a couple months ago, right, Bryan?
Yeah. A few months back now. The whole playlist is up on the channel. I'm going to check that out.
Bryan, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
I can barely hear you. Slightly.
For some reason, when I stick my headphones in, it cuts you out.
Actually, if you just mute your YouTube screen and you can take off your headphones, and we should be able to hear you just fine.
Is that all right? Can you hear me?
Yeah. That's right. Better. That's better. So Bryan just finished up his Halloween review series a couple months ago, and very, very good reviews, very detailed. We all three have, I guess I'm the big Halloween guy out of all three of us. I mean, everybody knows I love Halloween to death. It's my bread and butter. Cody, what are your thoughts, first off, on the series of Halloween? Where are you as far as like the spectrum of the fanatic versus the guy who doesn't like Michael Myers?
I'm slightly above casual Halloween fan, I would say. I've always loved the original movie. I've grown up with it. It's like a yearly staple in October. I've seen Halloween 2 numerous times. I loved H2O when it first came out. That was the first one that I ever saw in theaters. I had a lot of problems with the Rob Zombie movies, but I've grown to appreciate certain aspects of them. And I didn't watch the Thorn trilogy until this time last year. So I definitely grew up loving the character of Michael Myers, but I'm growing my appreciation for the Halloween series, whereas like Nightmare on Elm Street is kind of like my Halloween if I was Lee. So definitely love Halloween, but I didn't grow up with the entire franchise. I grew up with the original. That's probably the best way to put it.
Right. What about you, Bryan? Where do you fall?
Yeah, I pretty much grew up with Halloween. I'd say a bit like Cody. I'm above the casual viewer, but I wouldn't say I was the fanatic. For me, it's one of them franchises that has too many of its fair share of bad films in it. But when it's good, it's really good. And like the first Halloween film was one of the first horror films I ever saw. I mean, I remember being about 6 years old and seeing it on TV. I think it was because it was quite bloodless. It was one of those films that, for whatever reason, was somehow acceptable to show kids. So so I have distinct memories of that one as a kid, and My best friend as well, who's like best man at my wedding. He was a really big Halloween fan growing up, so I watched all of the Halloween films with him quite regularly. So, yeah.
My experience with Halloween is, first off, I'm such a huge fan of the Thorn trilogy, and I think the big reason for that is Halloween 4 was the first Halloween movie that I saw in the theater when I was 15. And I remember opening night, packed theater, and this was it was huge because Myers, had not been, in the picture for 7 years, I think, because Halloween 3 came out a couple years before that, and it was just a huge, huge bomb. And everybody, wanted Myers to come back in a big way. And 4 was number 1 for, I think, 2 or 3 weeks. The landscape, the climate back then was, he's back. This is awesome. Everybody loved the movie. And I remember in the theater, spoiler alert, that last scene when Danielle Harris, she has the clown mask on and blood, and Loomis's reaction. I think it's Loomis's reaction that really scared me to death and made me, completely obsessed with the franchise, because I couldn't sleep for weeks after that. And I always blame Loomis for it. And I think that's why I love Loomis as a character so much. I mean, his reaction was just priceless. So the Thorn trilogy, I pretty much experienced it in real time. I saw 4, I saw 5. I had that excruciating wait between 5 and 6. And I loved 6 to death when it came out. So I saw all 3 of them in the theater opening night, and I've been a fanatic ever since. And we're going to get into why I'm a big fanatic. That kind of plays into one portion of this. We're gonna do a whole section on Myers himself, why Myers works so well. But first thing we're going to talk about is the new movie, 2018. I mean, there's just, this last week has just been a firestorm of news. It seems like everybody's really on board and happy. Even non-fans are like, kind of, this is really cool. Like, we're getting a new Halloween movie with Jamie Lee Curtis, and I think a big part of it is the return of the original Myers, from the original series. The last time we saw him was 2002 for Halloween Resurrection. So it's kind of a breath of fresh air to not have, the Rob Zombie movies. Like them if you want to, but I think everybody can agree it's kind of nice to be trying something different and going back to the original. Cody, what are your thoughts on that? Do you want a continuation of Rob Zombie, or are you looking forward to, new Myers, I guess, or original?
No, I think Rob Zombie said everything that he wanted to say with those 2 movies. I think anything trying to continue that would just be forced. I mean, either love or hate the second film, but it's definitely a film of finality. So I don't think there's anything else that he needs to explore or anybody needs to take up the mantle for him to do. So definitely we need to go back to the original Myers. And I'm excited, although they're still kind of wishy-washy on what exactly direction they're going. Are they continuing straight off the first one? Are they continuing straight off the second one? But I'm excited to go all the way back to the beginning.
Oh yeah. And before I get Bryan's answer on that, or actually after I get Bryan's answer on that, I'm going to pull up, because I did my homework on this. I went back and I tracked the timeline of this new movie with Danny McBride, and I'm going to pull that up in a minute. But before I do that, Bryan, I know Bryan's a huge fan of the Rob Zombie movies, so I'm looking forward to hearing his thoughts on this. So go ahead, Bryan.
Yeah, I wouldn't let Rob Zombie touch this with a barge pole after Halloween 2.
There he is.
It's look, I would have said that about his first film a few years back. I remember coming out of that and just, really, really hating it. And I don't think that cinema experience was helped all that much by the fact that I was sat with the aforementioned friend that I was talking about, and he was really hating it, really hating it. That kind of rubbed off on me a bit. And I watched it only for the second time when I did my review series a few months back. And actually, I felt like I had been pretty harsh on it. There is quite a bit in his first film to recommend. I just think all that hillbilly foul-mouthed dialogue at the beginning really put me off. And if you see the director's cut with that awful rape scene in the prison that is just totally unnecessary.
Like, what is this doing in my Myers movie?
It's like, what is that all about? I mean, it's almost like they're positioning him at that point to be the hero. Like you want to see him kill these, and it's just no. Stop that.
As Tom Atkins would say, stop it.
Yeah, stop it! Stop it! Stop it! So I have warmed to that first film of his, and because of that, going into the second one, I went into that second one on my second viewing completely open-minded because I was like, you know what? My opinion completely changed on the first one. Let's go into this. I'm looking forward to it. And no, that thing is that is a flipping disgrace to celluloid. I will never watch that one again.
I hear that a lot too about the second one. Like, not just I don't like it. It should be wiped from the face of the earth. And we're going to talk about zombies films down the line. So I don't want to jump too far into that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull something up for you guys real quick that I put together. And this is basically the timeline, not the timeline of the series itself, but the timeline of this new movie. Let me pull this up real quick. This is we'll call this What We Know So Far. Okay. Now there might be a little bit of a delay, but I have it pulled up right now. I'll wait just a second so Cody and Bryan can see it on the screen here, because it's going to pop up here in just a sec. So that way we all see it together. But I took all these quotes from the first time that Danny McBride was mentioned as the writer, and David Gordon Green was the director. And you can see at the top we automatically get some news that it's not a reboot. And I think everybody can agree on that. There has been some speculation like, what is this movie? But I think most people know that, hey, this is a sequel of some sort. But the big confusion is, where does this thing fall? Mm-hmm. And, if you look down to the bottom right, it goes all the way down to Jamie Lee Curtis returns in her iconic role. It's huge. But the one thing that I wanted to bring to your attention is the bottom left. It says, inspired by Carpenter's classic, filmmakers David Gordon Green and Danny McBride crafted a story that carves a new path from the events in the landmark 1978 film. That almost makes me think part 2 doesn't exist. Cody, what's your thoughts on that?
That's what I thought from the beginning, but then I've read things, I think coming from John Carpenter, that was talking about that it was going to be after the second one. So until recently, I thought that was the direction. I thought that it was going to be a direct sequel to the John Carpenter's original movie, and that's what excited me, because I'm not too fond of this constantly the family storyline. Michael has to be chasing a family member, so I kind of like the idea of going back and trying something different from that sparking point of it was just a guy who was pure evil chasing people down and killing them for no apparent reason whatsoever. And Jamie Lee Curtis is going to come back, and let's continue that story as if the second movie never happened, and there's no big reveal that she's his sister or anything like that. That's what I'm hoping for.
That gets me excited. Yes. And I will admit, I kind of bought into that whole family, the family storyline aspect, especially in the Thorn trilogy. They really go deep into the whole family thing and why he wants to kill his sister and all that. But the first movie was not that at all. The first movie was, nobody knew what Myers was. He just was this escaped, crazed lunatic, and he was just searching, for babysitters, just wanting to kill people. So that intrigues me. Like, the thought of this taking place after the first movie, and Jamie Lee Curtis not being, she's Laurie Strode, but she is not his sister. That to me sounds really interesting, because we've never ventured there before. Yes. What do you think about that, Bryan? Do you want there to be the whole family angle, or are you for just a direct sequel to the first?
Just a direct sequel to the first. One of my big problems with the second film was that whole shoehorned. I mean, I can't remember his name. But you posted a link to him on Killer Flicks the other day, and I went and subscribed to him and watched his video. He just does like loads on Halloween, and he's done fan films. I'm struggling to remember.
Oh
his
yeah,
name,
yeah,
but-
I know exactly. Oh, it's just it's killing me.
But-
I'll
but
pull
he-
up his name in a minute, but yeah, I know exactly. And he makes these
Yeah.
great videos. But
well,
he
he
works
did-
in the industry. He made his own Halloween film, and
Yeah,
he
yeah.
knows like everything. Yeah.
But he pointed out that actually, if you remove that scene in which Donald Pleasance gives this information about Jamie Lee Curtis being his sister, if you just get rid of that out of the film still works.
Oh yeah.
Because it turns Michael Myers' motivation, if you want to call it that, into just simply that. Look, she's the one that got away. He can't let that go. So he ends up at the hospital. He follows her there because he sees her get carried away in the ambulance at the end of the beginning of the second film. So
Right.
he just makes his way there to finish off the job. And for me, that works for me a lot better. You don't need that family angle. Just that the one that got away mentality to me is much more interesting. Because again, like not having that motive, not having this blood tie, just simply that it kind of reminds me of It Follows, that you don't know why. There's no real sense in why it's coming for you. It's just coming for you. And that's that, you're earmarked. You're in the book. It's coming for you. So that to me is much scarier than having this family tie. But yeah, I mean, like when they announced that they're going to do it as a sequel to the first film and kind of cut out the rest, I kind of got a little bit more excited by that, to be honest.
Same here.
Yeah, absolutely. Dave McCrae is the guy's name, by the way. I looked it up.
Yes.
Definitely check out Dave McCrae's channel if you haven't. He'll put out like 45-minute videos just talking about this movie and everything we know, and he speculations and all kinds of great stuff. But he just became a member. I invited him to Killer Flicks, and he became a member. So, but yeah, the guy you can tell he's a Halloween fanatic, which is really cool. But yeah, we were talking about Jamie Lee Curtis coming back and Myers not being a sibling to her. And I guess my question is, how would they bring that story back? Like, why would he come to Haddonfield again? Why would he or would he even target Laurie Strode? Would he target somebody else, and then Laurie comes into the picture as kind of a Dr. Loomis type character and says, no, we must stop him? That excites me. What do you think about that, Cody? As far as like Laurie being kind of a Loomis type character?
I don't know if I necessarily want her to be a Loomis character, because I'm kind of burnt out on the Loomis angle of just somebody just has to chase him down and has to protect everybody. I kind of just like I don't know exactly how they would do it, but that would be a great episode of Pitch Wars.
Yeah. Pitch a Halloween movie.
Exactly.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how they're going to do it, and that's the answer that I'm most curious to find out ever since I've seen this Jamie Lee Curtis announcement, because I was one of the few people that wasn't really jumping for joy about it, because I assumed off the bat that they were just going to kind of do the same thing where, okay, Laurie Strode actually didn't die, and we're going to do the Michael Myers versus Laurie Strode thing again. But if it's just something like after he fell off that canopy and fell on the ground, he was just never seen again until suddenly 40 years later something happens, or he's come back and just popped up out of nowhere, or I don't know. It's interesting, and that's the biggest question that I'm curious to find out.
I think your video was an important video to make, and it was good that it was from somebody that's a casual fan, because me included, everybody was putting out these videos like, oh my God, this is the most amazing thing in the world, and it was kind of a knee-jerk reaction. And you put out this video stating, hold on, let's pump the brakes here for a second, okay? She came back in H2O, and we've seen that movie before. Don't give us that again. And, this could turn out to be not as good as we're expecting it to. And it could. So, I watched your video, and I was like, he's got a good point. On the flip side of that, and I kind of like this, we don't know anything. All we know is that Jamie Lee Curtis is coming back. And we know the time. We know that it takes place, in the present day. And I like that. I like not knowing yet. You know, they're still kind of holding some stuff close to the vest. I was thinking about like the trailer the other day. Like when this trailer drops, like if the anticipation is this crazy right now and we know nothing, what's it going to be like when the trailer for this thing drops? I mean, could that decide the fate of the movie on its own? What do you think, Bryan?
Well, I've never been one to put much stock in trailers, to be honest, because I wasn't particularly high on the trailers for it, but then that film really kicked ass. So
yeah,
I just don't think you can ever tell by a trailer. So I would hate for us to judge the film solely on the trailer. Because if the trailer comes out and turns out to be not that great, then for me, it's all about the film. I wait for the film and I decide what I think of it when I see the film. But going back to the earlier point with regards to where Myers fits into all this, like don't forget, in the first film he just waited in an asylum, just doing nothing for what was it, 18 years or something. He just
15 years.
Just sat there. Yeah, just sat there staring at a wall, doing nothing. And you know, he went back home Halloween night. Maybe he did. Maybe he had that one night to do his thing, and then he's been off staring at another wall somewhere for the past 30 odd years. I don't know, but yeah, it's hard to know why they would bring Jamie Lee Curtis back, and I can only envision it being some kind of the survivor of that night. You know, you get a new massacre or whatever, and then all the news media starts going crazy, starts digging Laurie Strode out, you know, saying this is the survivor. How do you feel about this new attack from this guy from 30 years ago? And then she's like, look, I don't want nothing to do with it, get out of my face. But because she's all over the news, because the media are prying into her life, trying to get her thoughts, he zones in on her and goes straight for her. That's kind of the take I would probably go with. But
you know, just you saying that, man, it just gets me so excited. Like, you got this whole new, you know, crop of, you know, young teens, or not teens, but, you know, this whole new cast that comes in, and then all this stuff happens. It would be exciting to me if Jamie Lee Curtis didn't even come into the movie until halfway through. Like, Myers comes into town, does his thing. Again, no family angle. And, you know, build that tension just like they did the first movie. And then he just starts killing people, you know. And then there's, like, chaos. And everybody's freaking out. Like, what the hell's going on? This happened 40 years ago. And then they bring Jamie Lee Curtis back in. This is the person that survived, just like you said, Bryan. That gets me so excited. And I pulled up this all my quotes here again, because there's one by John Carpenter that really gets me excited. 38 years after the original Halloween, I'm going to help try to make the 10th sequel the scariest of them all. That really gets me excited. Carpenter said at the time, Halloween needs to return to its traditions. There's another hint that this might take place after the first one, that this might not have that family angle. I feel like the movies have gotten away from that. Michael is not just a human being. He is a force of nature like the wind. That's what makes him so scary. And that quote alone, Cody, even if you're like a casual fan, hearing John Carpenter, who hasn't been a part of this series for over 30 years, come out and make a quote like that, how does that make you feel?
It excites me because his take on the character is the reason why I love the character, and that's the version of the character that I hold on to and I want back. I want the Michael Myers that has no purpose, and he's like the wind, and he's human, but he has a supernatural element to him. How he just kind of is there and he just exists. And that the fact that he's being so vocal about it is one of the reasons why I wasn't like really rolling my eyes at the Jamie Lee Curtis thing, because I'm like, okay, if he's coming back and they've got enough to get her back, there's got to be something there that everyone's getting excited about, because this isn't something that people just do. They don't just like come back to something that they've abandoned 30 plus years ago because bills are due. I guess I better do another Halloween. So So that excites me. And I was also thinking about this too. I was trying to think of another way that they could continue this story. And I'm curious what you guys think about this. What if they open up the movie and it opens up very similar to Halloween 2, where you see the tail end of the first movie, and then they have their own kind of spin from that. And I don't know if maybe Michael kills a little bit longer, but eventually he gets captured again and put back in the asylum. And then now this is 40 years later and he's escaped again.
Oh, wow. I like that.
Some similar, not to bring up the movie, but similar to how they did Texas Chainsaw 3D, where they went back to the end of the first movie and they took it in a different direction. Something like maybe that for the opening. And then 40 years later, now he's broke out again after being under maximum security, and now that's what brings us back.
I like the idea of Myers not even having his mask for like half the movie. And if you go back and you read that Halloween Returns script, which Will Pitt just mentioned it in the chat, that's one of the things that Myers himself is like, they nail Myers as a character in that script. The script has problems, but if you just read it just for Myers, he is scary as hell in that. In the middle of the movie, or I think it's like the first third of the movie, they got him in the electric chair, or no, I think they're gonna pump him with lethal injection. And if you read that portion, Myers just completely flips out because he looks in the corner of one of the people that got away. And, you know, Myers doesn't like it when somebody gets away. So he sees that person in the corner of his eye, and then he just snaps. He almost accepted his fate. I'm going to die. I don't care, you know. But that person's still alive. She saw me. So now he just flips into this rage. He goes crazy. And if you read that scene, it's just like chaos. And when they first announced that, hey, Myers was going to be on death row, I was like, that's really kind of stupid. I don't think that's going to work. But reading the script and how that scene was going to play out, and again, Myers had no mask on for like, you know, the first half of the movie. I was like, damn, if they can convey a little bit of that into this new movie, that would be badass. That would be badass.
Yes.
Yeah.
If they do that, I just want them to use creative camera work and not actually show his face. Because that's the one thing that drives me nuts about some of the movies. When you see the little pieces of Michael Myers' face, I'm like, no, he doesn't have a face to me. It's the mask. It's the shape. That's all I want to see.
Exactly.
That's why he's called the Shape. The whole point is he's just an embodiment of evil. To put a face on him, to put a personality on him, you humanize him too much, and we don't want him humanized. He's just a representation of evil.
Yeah, it drives me nuts about the fifth film. How many times they show his face?
No. He's a force, you know, and that was the purpose of the mask in the first place. You know, he is this force. We do not want to see him as a human being. You know, anything could be behind that mask, and that's what intrigued me about it. And then at the end, when they took the mask off, and he had this almost like childlike face, even as an adult, it made him even creepier. And there was something like in the first movie, if you look Tony Moran, when they took off the mask, it looked like his eye was like, I don't know. Did you guys notice that when you see the first movie? Didn't his eye look like it's kind of out of whack or something like that, which made it even? Didn't he get
stabbed in the eyeball?
Yeah, I think that's what it was, and they put like something on it, but it almost, his eye almost looked white, and it was. Yeah. It just makes it even creepier. It's like, oh God, put that mask back on. Yeah, it was just insane. But yeah, you know what's funny is like I'm even more excited for this movie now just talking to you guys because we're coming up with all these theories and ideas. And what's up, Durant Cinema? He's in the chat. It's awesome to see him. Yeah. So 2018 movie comes out next October. Let's talk about the date for a sec. Now, the last Halloween movie to come out in October was Halloween 5. That was 1989. That was so almost weird. 30 years ago. Why do we not have a Halloween movie coming out in October? That makes no sense. They put one of them, Resurrection, out in July. Even when I saw that movie, I was like, why is this coming out in July? This is the dumbest. Do they want this movie to fail? What do you guys think about that? Bryan, do you think it matters when these movies come out, or do you want it to come out in October?
Oh, absolutely it does, yeah. Flipping, the Saw franchise has literally cornered that market for the past decade that it brought the movies out, because they knew that come Halloween night, people want to go to the theater and watch something that is scary, watch a horror film. Why would you stick something called Halloween that is set around Halloween night, that is geared towards the Halloween crowd, people who want to see a scary movie on that day, and stick it at the tail end of the summer season when you've still got blockbusters coming out? It makes no sense to me whatsoever. So yeah, sticking it in October makes perfect sense to me, and I think it will make a difference to the box office, because by that point people will be in the mood for it.
Yeah, exactly. And my question for you, Cody, is, I just forgot my question to you, Cody. I really just forgot my question. I hate it when I do that.
Well, I will say, while you think of it, that I totally agree with what Bryan's saying, because I don't understand the strategy in that, because there's a strategy behind choosing release dates for films, because they do it years in advance. And why you would put a big event horror movie for one, but especially one that's titled Halloween in any month except for October, is just asinine. So I'm glad that they're nailing down that date this time. And I love the quote from Jason Blum saying, like, look, I'm not moving from that date. I don't care if I have to chop my own arm off as punishment. It's going to be there in October. So that's exciting to me, because there's nothing like, I've never experienced a Halloween movie in the theaters in October. So that's going to be like a bucket list thing for me.
Yeah, I saw Halloween 4, and it was in the middle of October. I think it was like late October. I think it was around the same date that they're supposed to release this one. And there was just like a fever in the air when I was sitting in that theater. Everybody was like, oh my God, we're going to see a Halloween movie in the theater. We're going to see Myers on the big screen, and it's October. It's close to Halloween. This is perfect. So it always like drove me crazy, like why they do that. But my question for you was regarding the box office. And given how, and I think it has a little bit to do with it too, it kind of lit a fire as far as the horror genre goes. Like, it made $123 million on the weekend. There has never been a horror movie to do that. A really successful opening weekend is half that, actually. Like, I think the Friday the 13th remake made like $60 million over the weekend. I could be exaggerating a little bit, but my point is, this is just not the norm. There's something that's getting people excited about horror, and then right after it comes out, we get this massive Halloween news, and it got me excited, thinking, what if this new Halloween movie like really brings back the slasher genre? I guess, in a way, you know, the original one that kick-started the whole slasher craze. Wouldn't it be cool if that actually brings it back? You know, and this movie makes those kind of numbers. Do you think that's even possible?
I don't think that it's going to reach it level, but I definitely think it's going to get up there. I think it's going to do much better than average, mostly because people have been waiting for this type of Halloween film for a very long time. And part of the genius with it was that it tapped into just a lot of different things. It tapped into not only a property that people have been clamoring to be redone for years, but it also tapped into people who were afraid of clowns. It had amazing trailers, at least in my opinion. I know Bryan disagrees. At least the first trailer for sure. But it had really good trailers. Just the marketing campaign to that movie was awesome. So if they are that smart with Halloween, then there's no stopping this movie. It's because you get John Carpenter's name back. You get Jamie Lee Curtis back. People are morbidly curious what the guys that made Pineapple Express are going to do with a Halloween movie, if they're going to set it in October. So, I mean, there's so many things working for this movie that all they have to do is just not fuck it up, and it's going to soar.
And which brings me right back to the trailer. You know, we were talking about how important this trailer would be, and it is a perfect example of how important a trailer can be, because the first It trailer, it was perfect. They gave you hardly anything, and it got people so excited. And then that scene, the You'll Float 2 scene at the end, if they can do what they did with the Halloween trailer, I think that'll be just the 1-2 punch. If that trailer's anywhere on the level of what it was, then it's going to be massive. You know, I hope they don't, and I know they won't, but I hope they don't give us one of those trailers that's just like gives you every freaking beat of the movie, you know, the first, the middle, and the last chapter. What are your thoughts on that, Bryan? What do you want from a trailer? And I know you said you're not like the biggest fan of trailers, but what do you want out of a trailer for the new Halloween movie?
I want to be teased. I don't want to see kills in it. I don't want one of my favorite trailers, and it probably helps that my anticipation level for the film was so beyond the charts, was the first teaser trailer we got for The Dark Knight, which we didn't see it. We didn't see anything. We saw a Joker card. The camera was panning into it, and we heard this speech being given by Alfred. And then at the end of that little speech, we heard for the first time Heath Ledger's Joker laugh.
Oh yeah.
And it was just like, oh my goodness, that laugh is the Joker. And then that was it. That was the trailer, and it got me excited because I didn't see any of the film. I didn't really know anything about the film from that trailer, other than the fact that it told me that the Joker is going to be someone who deals in chaos, and that's it. And that's all I needed. And
yeah, it's perfect.
Trailers like that are just the best kind of trailers. So, you know, if you give me a trailer in which we get a little bit of voiceover of Laurie Strode talking about her past, talking about that experience she went through, and then we get some kind of audio cue of some kind, or just a little visual that says, boom, Michael Myers is back. You know, like that's all I need from a trailer, just to get me excited, just to tap into the feelings that you had when you first saw the original. I mean, one of the things about it and the success of it, I think, is the 80s kind of vibe, because the whole thing with the kids really taps into like Stand By Me and that kind of vibe, in which, you know, like the Goonies, those kind of things, that all the people who are kind of adults now and who want to go and watch a good horror film, they were kids in the 80s, and they were like those kids in the 80s that we have in it. So it kind of taps into some nostalgia, a sense of nostalgia we have watching these kinds of films back then. I mean, I don't know how you felt about that, but when I was watching it, I really got into these kids, this group
absolutely.
of kids, because I remember having those kind of relationships. I remember dealing with the knobheads at school and having a close-knit group of friends who actually, you know, I only had about 5 friends through school, but that was enough because we were solid, and like it felt like the rest of the world couldn't touch us. And I think that, to me, was part of what sold the film to audiences.
That's what got me like really into it. Like, I remember just watching, you know, within the first 20 minutes, I said to my son, I was like, this is great. Like, and I haven't even seen Pennywise that much. And I think it set up the tone with the sewer at the beginning, and Pennywise just doing his whole popcorn thing with the kid, and it just, it was so good. They shock you right away with the kid, and then they start building all these relationships with the losers gang, and it was just perfect. I felt like I was watching an 80s movie, like Stand By Me or something like that. So it works so well. But can I give you my what I want out of a Halloween trailer? Because I kind of got an idea what would work great. I think the way they should do the trailers, first off, don't tell us it's a Halloween trailer. And I know today that they can't do that. You know, this won't happen, of course. But let me just tell you what, in my world, what I would love. You know, this trailer comes out, and you don't know it's a Halloween trailer, and then you see like a victim, you know, running from a first person point of view, and I'd say within like 10, 15, 20 seconds of the trailer, you start hearing this breathing, and the breathing just starts getting a little bit louder, and a little bit louder, and a little bit louder, and then I'd say by the second third of the trailer, you know it's a Halloween movie just because of the pronounced breathing. And then at the very end of the trailer, the camera like turns around and it's Myers' face. It pulls back, and then you hear the music, and then it says Halloween. Oh, I'm getting chill bumps just thinking about it. But that sounds.
You know the hurdle they're going to have to get over with the trailer, while not giving away too much, is they're going to have to convey to everybody what the timeline of this movie is. They're going to have to somehow let everybody know, hey, everything after Halloween 1 doesn't count in this, and it's going to be interesting how they do that.
Yeah, and I don't want to see a cell phone in the trailer, even if it's in the present day. I don't know. It's just something about cell phones in horror movies. It's just one little thing I don't like. I don't know what it is, and I know you can't get around that when you're present day. But yeah, and it's funny because like it's kind of ironic because when Scream came out, cell phones weren't a thing, and it's like Scream brought that idea to the table. Like, hey, what if we have cell phones in a horror movie? Even though cell phones are definitely not a thing right now, like not a big thing. Like I'd say 1 out of every 10 people back then had a cell phone, and it was kind of interesting that they brought that into a horror movie. So Scream was like so far ahead of its time in that regard, and now's like, you know, of course it's our life. You can't get away from it. And Halloween, I think everybody loves like those first few movies. Those are the ones that people, and I think part of that is because it has that you know classic feel, the Dean Cundy cinematography, you know, all that great stuff, and a cell phone should be nowhere near that. And so I think that's one of the things that bummed me out was I was kind of hoping that this movie would take place in the 80s or in the 70s, but you know I knew better. Especially when Jamie Lee Curtis came back to the fold. Oh, okay, yeah, of course they're going to do it in the present day now. But yeah, that's my take on it.
Can I tell you what my idea for the Halloween 2018 is?
Go.
After the events of the first film, Laurie Strode had to go into hiding, so she changed her name to Mrs. Voorhees, and she had a son. It didn't quite work out all that well, so she decided to go back home. But her son's going to come and follow, and shit's going to happen. But,
Free CP.
Yes.
There it is. I had to get it out. Okay, it's out there now.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. Before we move on, because I mean we've been talking for 45 minutes about this new movie. Is there anything you guys have left to say about the new movie before we move down the line? Probably pretty quickly. Because we're going to talk about the series too. You know, we're going to have a little bit of fun, talk about our favorite kills. We're going to talk about our favorite movies, all that stuff. But Bryan, anything else you have to say about Halloween 2018?
Yeah, which leads into our next thing. That's if we've not gone past our next thing, and I've just not realised. But
okay,
the whole Loomis.
Yes, that was strategic.
I don't want Loomis in this. I don't want anything to do with Loomis in this.
Interesting.
Loomis had his purpose. He was there essentially for exposition. He was there to build the mythos of who Michael Myers is, and he did that excellently. But after that, we don't need him to do that again. And that was my problem with that character throughout the films, is that he just kept on coming back and giving these speeches about how he's evil incarnate. And it's just like, well, yeah, by the time you get to the 6th film, I'm bored with that. Do something different. We don't need him to keep propping up and doing that. So, yeah, no Loomis for me. Thank you very much.
I'm
no
kind
ties.
of like in the middle on that. And let me go back to the first movie. The first movie, before Loomis does that famous little speech in the middle, it was creepy, it was scary, but we didn't know what Michael was. And when he says, I met this 6-year-old boy with this blank, pale, emotionless face and the blackest eyes, the devil's eyes. When he says the devil's eyes, man, that I still remember my reaction when I first saw the first Halloween. That sent a chill down my spine. Like I literally felt scared just from the way Donald Pleasance delivered that line. And from that moment on, we knew what we were dealing with, and it might not be. It was like just pure evil, and that is part of the reason why Loomis is such an important character. Arguably, one of the most important characters in horror history, outside of the main villain. You know what I mean? Like, you look at the Friday franchise. There's no character like Loomis. You look at the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise. There's no character like Loomis. And Loomis is a big reason why I think this franchise has such, obsessed fans. And I think he's missed, like terribly missed. And I think that's why those movies are the best, aside from Halloween 5. Because Loomis was kind of just completely crazy by the time we got to 5. But I it's like every movie after that, it's just like I've always been like, God, I want. And Malcolm McDowell, for as great of an actor as he is, and as much as I do like the Rob Zombie movies, he is that one missing link for me. Like I cannot get into his portrayal of Loomis at all. It's almost the opposite of what Loomis should be.
I think that's one of the reasons why they shouldn't even try to bring him back, because if it's not going to be Donald Pleasance, we're not going to be happy with it. And like Bryan said, he served his purpose. That's one of the reasons why some of the first couple of movies are great. But like I said earlier, I'm with Bryan. I got burnt out on his placement in the story by the fifth film, especially. Like the fourth film, he still kind of had a purpose, especially by the end of the movie. But the fifth film and then the sixth film, and it's just like, Jesus Christ. So and then you kind of go through the motions again in the Rob Zombie one, and they did try a different angle for that character in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, Love It or Hate It. So I think they've kind of squeezed all the juice out of the Loomis character for now. So I think that even though his presence will be missed, we're not going to get Donald Pleasance back. We're not going to get his purpose in the first movie back. So I think that's one thing that they'd be smart to kind of just let it be.
Yeah. The end credit scene in the Halloween Returns script, there is a Loomis scene in there that is probably the most exciting scene with the character since probably Halloween 4. And I don't know if you guys have read that script or not, but at the end of all the chaos and everything that happened, and you had this Rogers character that was kind of like, I think, an underling of Loomis, and he was the main focus, the guy trying to control Michael throughout. He had a conversation with Michael, and he was trying to control him throughout the whole movie. And I did enjoy his character. Like, I can't have Loomis, but this guy's actually pretty interesting because he's still on that level. Well, at the very end, they're in the hospital room. Myers cut the guy's tongue in half at the end of the movie. And so then he's in the hospital, and there's this shadowy figure just standing in the corner. And he tells the shadowy figure, I tried to reason with him. I tried to get through to him, but I could not. I couldn't do it. And then the voice that's in the shadowy figure says, you're talking about him as if he were a man, and he's not a man. He is purely and simply evil. And then the shadowy figure comes out of the corner, and it's Loomis. And it even says in the script, Gary Oldman with the eyes of a chopping block. And I'm getting chills just thinking about it right now. Like, Gary Oldman as Loomis would probably be really good. But oh wow, that scene was just insane. So I'm glad we segued into Loomis because he's such a fun character to talk about. But unfortunately, we'll never have another Donald Pleasance. So I'm with you guys. Like, I don't know if we can get a Loomis back.
Myers must have thought it was White Boy Day. It ain't White Boy Day, Myers.
It ain't White Boy Day. True romance, baby. Oh God, I love that. All right. You know what? You guys want to move to timelines in the story?
Yes.
Okay. Let's talk about because Halloween can be broken down into Halloween 1, 2, and H2O. Fuck Resurrection. It can be broken down into 4, 5, and 6, the Thorn trilogy, and then you got the Rob Zombie movies. Mm-hmm. What is your favorite timeline out of that? And tell me why you love that timeline. Go ahead, Bryan.
So, as far as I'm concerned, the only timeline is Halloween 2, just about. And then I kind of want to stick Halloween 4 in there, and then H2O, but I kind of don't quite work if you have Halloween 4 in there. So yeah, I'd just go 1, 2, and H2O, to be honest. That'd be my timeline. A lot of those films are quite a mess. And like Halloween 4 is so good, and they really cocked it up with the other two. Well, yeah. particularly with 5.
5 almost puts a stain on 4.
Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm.
I have the same exact preference. I love the original movie. I enjoyed the second movie, although I'm not a big fan of lurking zombie Myers. And I'm a much bigger fan of H2O than most people. That's actually my third favorite Halloween movie. So that's my preference. I like elements of the Thorn trilogy, most of the fourth film. I think most people would say that, and elements of the sixth film. There's elements of the Rob Zombie films that I like, but I like pretty much the entire timeline of 1, 2, and H2O.
Yeah, I kind of have a multifaceted answer to that. My rankings for the series up to part 6 is really, really high. Like, I love all 6 of those movies. 5 gets a pass just because that third act is pretty decent. But the 5 it's like a 3 out of 5 movie. But every other movie around that is just
3 out of 10. You mean?
Right? Yeah,
That's generous.
I know. So, I think I love the Thorn trilogy, even though it gets crazy. It gets way out of hand. You know, I love Part 6, but Part 6 definitely has some story issues. But I find myself throwing in that Thorn trilogy more than I do like any other set of movies. And I'll watch the first movie, you know, because I have to watch the first movie every October. But and because I'm not the biggest fan of H2O. You know, like the only great thing about H2O for me was Jamie Lee Curtis. Myers was a joke in that movie. I'll go ahead and call it out. Chris Duran was not a good Myers. It's not totally his fault because the mask, they had 4 different masks in that movie. They had, and I know I got blasted by somebody the other day about this because I said they're Scream actors. You know, it came out right after Scream, and they said, "Ooh, let's copy that formula. Let's put Scream actors in a Halloween movie and see how that works." And you know, Josh Hartnett was good, but I just didn't like that they were trying to like copy Scream. Halloween shouldn't be copying Scream. Scream was like an homage to Halloween, so why in the hell are they doing that? So that maybe H2O kind of puts a stain on the first 2 because I love the first 2. Like the first 2.
Dare you?
But not like
I love H2O.
I know.
I love H2O.
A lot of people.
You know, I got to be honest though. I've never really gotten the Scream thing. Like I've heard that a lot, that it's a ripoff of Scream, but I've never quite grasped that.
There's a Creed song in the Scream soundtrack, and there's a Creed song in H2O.
Oh, well,
so there's your time.
Well, there you go.
They even use them.
Yeah.
There's like a piece of the actual music that was composed for Scream is actually used in H2O as well.
Yeah. Oh yeah, definitely.
But it's structure as well. It's like the way they have that opening kind of elongated opening that kind of sets up the killer, and then so
they used the same house from Scream 3 in H2O. They both were filmed in the same house. It's set in California. Scream is, I believe, set in California. Halloween should not be set in California, people. It should be set in Haddonfield, Illinois.
Yeah, I mean, for that story, it makes sense though, because why would Laurie Strode change her name and stay in Haddonfield?
Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. I'm not hating on H2O. I still throw it in. I still have a blast, especially in the end when Laurie Strode yells Michael. I get chills down my spine. When she screams his name, oh, that is great. There's parts of that movie that are awesome.
Yeah, as soon as she walks down that street with that axe in her hand and just starts screaming his name, like that movie is just awesome from that
it's
point
awesome
to the end
from that
for me.
point on. And that's the Laurie we've always wanted, you know? Like, we want her to finally stand up to him. And I think that was kind of an answer to that, her dropping the knife in the first movie, because everybody screamed at her for dropping the knife. She picked up an axe in H2O and said, you know what, fuck the knife, let's bring an axe to the party.
Yeah.
And, you know, she kicked ass. Now I want to watch H2O. Yes.
You secretly love it, just admit it.
I know, right? I love parts of it. I do. Yeah, I haven't mentioned Myers, though. Myers, that's my least favorite Myers. Like, I like Resurrections Myers better than I do H2O Myers. So, all right, let's go to top 3 kills. I hope you guys have prepared a list.
Yeah.
If you didn't,
Don't
I hope
start
you
with
think
me.
well on your feet. So, give me your Bryan. Give me your number 3 favorite kill.
Okay. My number 3 is from the first film, and it was. So I was torn between them because, in a way, I wanted to go with the strangle.
Yeah.
Because it's a really bland kill, really, but that I specifically remember it from my childhood because it was one of the first moments in a horror film that I saw as a very young kid. Michael Myers in the back of the car, and he just strangles her, and it's like from that moment on, you're looking whenever you get in the car, you know. But it's not that one. I went with the bit where he pins the guy to the wall with the knife. He picks him up, stabs him, and he's just left hanging on the wall. And then Michael Myers just kind of stands there, just looking at him, kind of moving his head from side to side. And it's just a very weird moment in which it's almost like he doesn't understand what he's just done, and he's taking it in. And evaluating it in some way, and it's very clinical and very detached, and it kind of adds to that devoid of humanity like quality that Michael Myers has got. So yeah, so that was a good kill, I think.
That's a good one. Cody, what's your number 3?
Well, I'll go ahead. Spoiler alert: Bryan just said everything I was going to say for my number 1, so I'm going to choose 3 different ones just to have a different conversation. But that is absolutely 100% agree. That's my favorite kill of Myers for everything that he said. My number 3, I'll say the kill in Halloween 4 when he's still got bandages and everything on, and he's in the auto shop, and the guy comes out and he just comes up out of nowhere and just spears his ass.
Yeah,
I really like that because of the look of him for one, and because it comes out of nowhere. And it's if I'm not mistaken, it's the first kill of the movie, is it not? Well, maybe not because he kills the paramedics. Never mind. But it's
that's a good one too. Oh, there's a lot of good kills actually.
Yeah, but I've always liked that one just because it kind of comes out of nowhere. He's just like, oh shit, it's Michael, dude, and you're done.
Since you brought up Halloween 4, for me, I think my number 3, and I love this kill, is when he sticks his thumb in the paramedic's forehead.
Mm-hmm.
That is, they probably spent 50 cents on that, and it just, it's like so effective. Like, it looks real, like he really has his thumb in the dude's freaking forehead. And it shot, like the pacing of that scene too, because they're just sitting in the ambulance, they're having a nice little conversation, and then just boom, out of nowhere, man, he just like grabs the guy's head, slams his thumb in his forehead. So a couple different reasons I love it. So that's my number 3. Bryan, what's your number 2?
Well, in any slasher movie, there's always a character who is a complete and utter douchebag. And they're the one that you want to see get killed. And because you want to see them get killed, they have to do it in quite a big way. So for that reason, Curse of Michael Myers, the head explosion.
I was actually thinking of that one too.
It's like that guy is such a douchebag, and I just
God.
can't wait until he gets killed. And oh boy, do they go big with it. I mean, it's like it's complete nonsense. His head just would not explode in that situation, but I don't care. It looks gruesome. It's pretty funny. And he finally gets his comeuppance. So
there's a lot of Bucky talk in the chat. And I don't know if Bucky's on any of our lists, but he needs to be mentioned. And so I'm just going to give this one to the chat. You guys win on this one. I love that scene with Bucky because it's just like, why give the guy I don't know. That scene is famous because of the guy's name. Like everybody's always like, but I want a T-shirt that says Bucky should have lived or something like that. And I want a helmet like Bucky had that says Bucky on it. That would be great. So yeah, I love Bucky. Cody, before you give me your number 2. What are your thoughts on Bucky? I want an in-depth analysis. Like, Cody gives like 15-minute videos. So go ahead, Cody.
You're gonna have to. You just really threw me under the bus, buddy. The Thorn trilogy. I don't have too much experience with. So I don't remember who Bucky is.
Oh God, that's great. That's awesome.
Cody, give me an in-depth analysis on this character you don't know shit about.
I love it. That's great.
But Bucky should have totally lived. Give me that. I'll make that T-shirt and send it to you.
He was at the power station when Michael shuts down the power to the whole town, and he says, "You wait right here, and don't you even think about moving."
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. That was a funny scene. I don't remember all of it, but yeah, I remember it now because I remember seeing. He's kind of a meme. I remember seeing it a lot. So yeah. Now the light bulb is on.
Yep. There you go. All right. What's your number 2?
My number 2 is actually going to be from Curse of Michael Myers, number 6, and it's when Curse first came out. I actually rented the tape whenever I was young, whatever year it came out, and I remember I was watching it. We went to my grandma's house. I put the tape in. I was in the back room by myself, and before my cousins got there, and I kind of got pulled away from the TV and don't remember anything else about the movie. This kill has always stuck with me all the way up until last year when I finally watched the whole movie all the way, and that's when he grabs the nurse and he shoves her head onto that spike in the very opening of the movie. I love that kill.
That is a fantastic kill. And I wonder if that was kind of an homage to the first movie, because it was another victim up off their feet. Michael has a thing with like lifting his victims up and, you see feet dangling. because
Mm-hmm.
they do that in H2O. They do that in Halloween 6. They do it in Resurrection. That kill might be in like at least half the movies. Somebody in the chat mentioned the laboratory massacre from Part 6. Part 6 has a lot of great kills, actually.
Mm-hmm.
But that scene is insanity. Like, and a little trivia for you there, because A. Michael Lerner played Michael for the last act of Part 6, because the producer's cut was the original ending, and then they did test screenings. People didn't like it, and so it's actually really interesting if you watch the documentary on the deluxe edition box set. They actually had to go covert ops, and they filmed like that whole scene with Paul Rudd beating him with the pipe and all that. They didn't have permission to do that, and I think from the producers, like the producers didn't know that they were filming this stuff, and so they filmed the whole thing with a different Michael, and then George P. Wilbur, who played Michael from the first 2/3 of the movie, he is actually in that third act, but he's not Michael Myers. He's actually one of those doctors in the laboratory massacre. So, shows you how much of a Halloween fan I am.
Yeah. Laying some knowledge on us.
Laying some knowledge, some Myers knowledge. But my number 2 is going to be, I think I'm going to go with the, because my number 1 and number 2 they're really close. So I'm just going to go with Halloween 4, when he picks up Brady and he takes his thumb and just kind of like, almost like crushes his face, and then you hear his neck snap. That sound effect that they used for the neck always got me. Like that was great, and it just looked, the lighting in that scene, everything just looked perfect. So I've always stylistically I love that one.
So what you're telling us is you really like it when Myers kills with his thumb.
Yeah, that's 2 of my favorite kills involve Myers' thumb. Is there something like is there something wrong with me, like that? I don't know. Psychologically, like on a subconscious level.
You got a thumb fetish.
I got a thumb fetish, yeah. Only for Myers, though.
Lee's expectation for the 2018 movie is like, all right, as long as there's a thumb kill in there, you got me. That thumb returns.
Exactly. Okay, Bryan, this is it. Drum roll, please. Bryan, what's your number 1 kill?
Well, I'd like to go with Tina, just because I cannot stand that character.
Oh my God, yeah.
I, honest to God, can't remember even how she gets killed. I think by that point I just zoned out. So, yeah, my favourite one is the nurse from Halloween 2. Just because, yeah, he just comes up behind her, sticks a knife in her, and then slowly picks her up off the ground. And you see her feet kind of switching, and then she just drops, kills her. It's just like, it just shows you the power that Michael has.
Oh, yeah.
It's really, it's a very kind of brutal, animalistic kill, I think. So
Myers' kills they're almost like stylistic in nature, some of them, you know? It's like, or like Jason's kills, although they're great, Jason's kills are like funny almost. Whereas Myers, they don't go for comedy. They more go for like style and visuals, and you know, and I like that. I like that they don't try to copy the Jason kills, you know, because these franchises, they kind of overlap each other as they went along. So I like that they both have their own thing. Cody, what's your number 1?
Well, my number 1, technically my number 2, is, I was nervous that Bryan was going to steal it again. It is a nurse from Halloween 2, but it's the one that gets boiled to death whenever he comes up behind her. He's got the hot tub cranked all the way up to scalding levels, and he just repeatedly puts her face in. And every time she comes up, she's more burned. She's got more skin hanging off. I love the prosthetics and everything they do and the effects of that scene. And there's an underlying piece of that kill that makes him even creepier. And it's the fact that he's sticking his own arm in this water. He's sticking his hand and holding it there while he's killing her.
Oh, yeah.
And it's not phasing him a bit.
No, he's completely insane. That was my number 1, by the way. You stole it. So I'm going to give an honorable mention then. Because, the Pamela Susan Shoop kill is great for a lot of reasons. You know, not just... there's
2 reasons.
Yeah, those 2 reasons as well. I mean, every slasher franchise, they got to have their bit of nudity. But I think that one's like the most nudity out of like all the kills. As a matter of fact, in Halloween 4, there was supposed to be some nudity in the scene with Brady and I can't. You know what I'm talking about, though, right? And they cut it out, like, and I'm sure a lot of males were screaming like, "Why would you cut that out? That's crazy." But so I guess my honorable mention would be, this is tough. I'll give Rob Zombie one of the kills. I'll just go ahead and give him one of the kills. I think when Myers is young and he, the bully, he chases the bully out into the out of the school into the woods, and he beats him to death with a stick. I remember when I first saw that was pretty damn like crazy, and that's like, we haven't seen Myers as a child kill before, besides the famous Judith kill. So I guess I'll give some credit to that one just because of how unique it was. So yeah, cool. So there's our favorite kills, and now we will move on to the next thing. This is a good topic. Why Myers works so well. I mean, even if he's not your favorite slasher, he's still one of the big three. And I think, why do people get obsessed with Myers? What do you think, Bryan?
I just think that, when you look at other killers, like you look at Jason Voorhees, he's got a whole sob story as to why he became a killer. So there's a definite attempt there, really, to humanize him in some way. And even Freddy Krueger, as much of a monster as Freddy Krueger is, he's still he was a man who was burnt alive, and there is that kind of revenge element there. There's a human motive for why he does what he does. But with Myers, the strange thing is he's a normal kid. He's just a normal kid. For whatever reason, a trigger was switched, and he just started killing. And then he sat there for all those years in a hospital, just blank, expressionless. And I think it's that element, just the fact that there is no motive. And that's what's scarier. When someone has a motive for doing it, that's something that you feel you could maybe negotiate with or reason with. Yeah. Whereas Myers isn't to be reasoned with, because he has no motive, or at least he didn't. When there was no family connection involved, when it was just, I'm going to kill. Admittedly, the first person he kills is his sister, but after that, it's like, yeah, anyone will do. And it's just that element for me, really. Just he embodies evil. Evil is indiscriminate. It doesn't make a kind of judgment as to who it will try and destroy. It just wants to destroy everyone, and that's that. And I think that's why we like Michael Myers so much, because it taps into that kind of primal fear about the nature of evil. Yeah,
that's a good answer. And you say evil because I think that's like the trigger word right there. Is Jason evil? No, we don't know that. Is even Freddy? You don't hear the word like evil too much, but I mean, when you hear the word evil and you think of what slasher killer is evil, Myers is the first person that comes to mind. He's pure evil. Cody, do you have anything to add to that, or do you have like a different reason why you think Myers works so well?
I mean, I definitely echo pretty much everything that Bryan said, because I think that being him we had the same vision of Myers, and it's just the Myers from the first film above all anything else. Because when you start getting into the Thorn trilogy, then all of a sudden there's motives and there's puppets and strings and everything like that. But if you're just speaking on just my vision of Myers, which is just the first one, and I might repeat some of what Bryan said, but what I love about Michael Myers and why he works for me is because there's just nothing there. There's no motive. There's no desire. There's no like him trying to get any kind of gain out of it. He just exists. He's just there. He's there one minute, he's gone the next. He's breathing, and now he's outside. Now he's in the room next door. Even the mask. I mean, even when you look at, if it even shows up, but just the mask, the way that everything is just blank and expressionless and just a blank slate. To me, that's a really creative and interesting way to look at just something that's pure evil. And when he just is. He kills because fuck you. That's why. And I mean, this is kind of the whole thing with Michael Myers that I love. You know, when you get like, I love Freddy to death. There's always motives there of revenge, and there's all the things like that. When you look at Jason, that's more kind of B movie to me, but it's part revenge, it's part people kind of, you know, coming into his territory and they asked for it. Chucky, it's all about trying, you know, there's always motives. Myers is the only guy that we never understand why he kills. He just does.
Yeah, and I'm glad you mentioned the mask, because that was a big part of what I was going to mention, because, you know, obviously Bryan nailed most of it. But also, I think physically there's something there too. Like the story of the mask to me is so fun. It's so interesting. They shot the first movie in like April, I think, or March, and it wasn't, you know, the time. There was no Halloween masks out. All there was, you know, they went to a hardware store. Tommy Lee Wallace went to a hardware store, and all he could find was a Spock mask, a William Shatner mask, and a clown mask. And so when they came back, and the two that they tried were the clown mask and the William Shatner mask, and he comes out in the clown mask, and it was pretty creepy actually. They were like, wow, this could actually work. So they were seriously thinking about going with that clown mask, and at the time they weren't thinking the William Shatner mask is probably not going to work that well. So they took that Shatner mask though, and they painted the face white, they teased up the hair, they cut off the eyebrows, and they just made it a blank slate. Don't make this William Shatner. Let's just make this a blank slate, and let's use lighting and all that stuff. And so the way Tommy Lee Wallace describes it, when they came out in the William Shatner mask, he said a chill just went down everybody's spine. Like everybody in the room was just like, oh God, that's like this freakiest thing I've ever seen. This is perfect. And they all freaked out like, oh my God, we have something here. Please don't let them know that this is William Shatner. And because they were afraid of getting sued. So I think that's another reason why they changed the look so much, because they knew if they just had a straight up William Shatner mask, they were going to get sued out the ass. So that's why they used it in the second one too, because still Halloween was a huge hit, but still they didn't quite know that it was William Shatner until, you know, after. But so that's a big reason for me. Like that Myers mask, when done right, and I still think the first movie gets it the best, because you have Dean Cundy doing the lighting. You know, I think a blue hue on the Myers mask is like the creepiest thing ever, and so it works so well. All right, so we're getting down the line. Oh, okay, this is gonna be a fun one. We're back to the zombie films. All right, so this should be fun because we all have different opinions on the zombie films. I think I'm probably the farthest over one direction, as Bryan is the opposite direction, and I think Cody might be in a little bit of the middle somewhere. So I guess I'll start with me, as far as, because Bryan kind of summed up what he was thinking about. I mean, he hates the zombie films, and you're not alone, Bryan. I'd say like most people hate the zombie films. At least the second one. That's the one that I constantly hear the most. And funny enough, the second one is like, I don't know. I think it's just I'm able to separate the second movie from the whole franchise. Even Rob Zombie's first movie. I look at it as a completely different type of film, as more of like a psychological study of what a trauma victim goes through. You know, like just imagine you were a person that went through what Laurie Strode, Scout Taylor Compton's Laurie Strode, went through in that first movie. And, you know, at the end of the movie, she's screaming her lungs out. And I remember, Bryan, you said in your review, you know, that people complain about that, but they would probably be screaming like that. You know, they'd probably be going nuts. And so I think her reaction at the end of the first movie is kind of what the anchor was for the second movie. And Rob Zombie even said this: I didn't even want to do the second movie. And then all of a sudden, a spark happened. I thought about Laurie Strode. So let's not focus on Myers. Let's focus on Laurie Strode and see, you know, what she goes through, because they don't really do that in slasher movies that much. You know, they take care of their victims and then they move on to the next victims and the next. Whereas this one, they kept all the same victims from the first movie, even Danielle Harris. And they said, let's study that a little bit. Let's look at what caused all this and how are they picking up the pieces. And let's don't bring Myers into the fold until like maybe the last act of the movie. And that's what struck me about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. And for some reason, for me, I got it. I was like, wow, I was really digging Especially Scout Taylor Compton's performance in some of the scenes when she's talking to the psychiatrist. I ate it up. I thought she was great. So I think maybe that's why I loved it so much. And I personally didn't think it was as white trash as the first one was, you know? Mm-hmm. So that's my opinions on the zombie movies. I do like the first one, but it definitely has, like, I don't like the first half of the first zombie movie as much as the second half. Second half's pretty fun. Cody, what are your opinions on the zombie movies as a whole? And I'd like to hear you talk a little bit about the second one as far as what you think about it. Go ahead.
Well, it's no secret if you followed my channel for any period of time that I'm not a fan of Rob Zombie as a director in the slightest. His Halloween movies are the only ones that I can give some forgiveness to here and there. When I saw the trailer come out for the first one, I mean, when I heard Rob Zombie was doing a Halloween, I was like, oh, Christ. And then whenever I saw the trailer, I was like, you know, this might actually work. I don't really like this was before Hollywood got obsessed with exploring the childhood origins of every fucking horror icon we have. Yeah. But it was kind of a new idea. Like, okay, they're going to do something different. Thank God, because remakes tend to just rehash the same shit. So I went and saw the movie with my dad, and everything that I was hoping the movie was not going to be, the movie was, as far as the Rob Zombie isms, all of the white trash stuff, all of the ridiculously over-the-top profanity, and to the point where it's just, you know, I swear all the time, but it's just so off-putting when you shove it into every freaking line in the movie. I mean, like, I swear when Rob Zombie writes a script, he gets a script and then he goes through and he inserts fucking cunt into every other sentence. And it's just like, dude, after a while it just wears you down. You're like, this is just, it's draining me. So the first half, just like you said, I don't like at all. And I think the kid who plays Myers as a kid is a shit actor.
Yeah, I agree.
Then you get into kind of the Rob Zombie remake in the more traditional sense where he follows the events of the first movie. And there's fun to be had there. There's different little spins that he takes, like killing the actual Strode parents. You get a lot of horror movie alumni in that movie, which is fun. I mean, you get Ken Faree, you get a lot of actors that you will recognize. And there's some cool characters, and I do like the new actor, the Scout Taylor Compton. I do like her take on the Laurie Strode. I don't think she was trying to do a Jamie Lee Curtis impersonation, which is one of the things I can't. Yeah, so I like that. I like that Danielle Harris was back. That was cool. I thought a lot of the kills, the brutality, and everything like that was cool. I'm 50-50 on Tyler Mane because I like the brutality of his Myers, but I still think he's way too big. Because it kind of undercuts the why Myers should be scary. He shouldn't be scary because he can break you in half in a second. It should be because he's evil and he's just got a supernatural edge to him. So I like half of the first zombie movie, and the other half I could almost fast forward through, to be honest with you.
Yeah.
So that's that with that one. Then the second movie comes out, and I remember seeing Rob Zombie's making a Halloween 2, and I had the same reaction. Oh, Christ. And then I saw the trailer, and I was like, this is wildly different. And that is what I like so much about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2. I am a defender of the movie. I don't think it's a great movie because there's still a lot of the zombie problems in the second movie, a lot of his bad dialogue, a lot of his bad writing. And I wish he would just let somebody else write his movies. But what I love so much about that movie is that it's the ballsiest and the most unique and, the most ballsy and unique chapter in this entire franchise to me. Because, or sequel, as far as sequels. Because one of my things that I was so wore down by in this franchise, and it's part of the reason why I had motivation to do that Jamie Lee Curtis video, is because it's just been kind of the same thing over and over and over again. Myers is chasing the family member. Myers is chasing the family member. And then you get into Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, and even though that is a motivation to a degree, not necessarily to kill her because he wants to reunite with his sister, but there's so much different in that movie as far as Michael not having the mask on.
Yep.
As far as that, I love the fact that he kind of grunts, like when he's killing, he's like, I like all that. Yeah. I like the spin that they took on Loomis. They made him kind of this selfish, profiteering asshole. Not that I prefer him to the Donald Pleasance, but I'm saying by the time I've seen the Donald Pleasance Loomis for 6 films, that was an interesting take to me. I don't necessarily buy into his change in the third act where all of a sudden he's Loomis again and he's going to go save the day. And I think the ending of that movie really falls apart in both versions, especially the director's cut. Like, Myers should never speak.
No, I agree.
But I love the kills, the brutality of that movie. It's got some of the best kills some of the goriest kills and the most brutal kills for sure. I like a lot of the acting in it as far as the main characters. Like you said, Scout Taylor Compton's really good. Danielle Harris is really good because she's just as traumatized as the first film, but she can't get Laurie to understand, like, I'm just as fucked up as you, but you're not giving me any credit. You just think you're this only victim. You're the only survivor. And then I love Brad Dourif in that movie.
Yeah, that's what I wanted to get to. Brad Dourif is the shining light in that film because everything else around it is absolute crap. Brad Dourif gives a performance in that film that, quite frankly, that film does not deserve. Really stunning. His reaction to seeing to hearing about his daughter getting killed is just incredible.
Yes. Incredible. I'm curious what you think about this too, Bryan, because this is my last point about Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, because I think this is the one thing that I will say, I might get shit for it, but I'm 100% standing by this opinion. This is the one thing that Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 does so well that the original couple of movies completely shit the bed on, in my opinion. I think that the way that they reveal the whole family ties to Laurie in the second film, I think was done so well in the Rob Zombie movie, where Loomis puts it in his book, doesn't care at all. She finds out. She's freaking like going mad about it. All that. I felt like that was such a brilliant way to do it versus a lot of what you were saying about the way that they do it in the original Halloween 2, where it's just kind of this throwaway scene.
Yeah, she is such a damaged...
In the original...
Go ahead, Bryan.
Sorry. Well, in the original Halloween 2, it's so clunky because it's just this expositional line of dialogue that just seems rammed in there from nowhere. And I agree. I think it works a lot better in the second film. My only problem with that is that Loomis's character, oh man, you say you don't buy the change back to old Loomis at the end of the film. I don't buy the change from old Loomis to this douchebag we get at the start of the second film. It's just like, it makes no sense to me whatsoever. In the first one, he's someone who's worked with Michael Myers for years. He's got something of a moral backbone. What, you're telling me that now he suddenly goes all book deal crazy and turns into a complete douchebag? That made no sense to me whatsoever. That was just a contrivance for the sake of convenience. I hated it. Absolutely hated it.
He tried to redeem himself, I think, a little bit at the very end, but Rob Zombie just takes it way too far with him being a douchebag. And I think if he would have pulled back a little bit, then the ending would have had a lot more weight, because he does try to redeem himself. And at the end, he does care about Laurie, and he does kind of feel bad about what he's been and what he's become. And I think that arc could have worked better if the arc wasn't so high in one position and then just this sharp drop at the very end. You know what I mean?
And that's one of Rob Zombie's faults as a director and a writer, is he's not subtle at all. So I should change my wording. It's not that I like that version of Loomis. I didn't mind the change. I'll put it that way. I definitely don't prefer it, but he's not subtle with anything that he does.
We've not seen that journey. We've not seen that journey of him going from a decent doctor to being a complete douchebag. We just start the second film and he's a douchebag all of a sudden. And it's like, how did we get here? I hated it. Absolutely hated it. And 20 minutes of pretty nail-biting sequence is just, it's a dream. It's a dream sequence. That really annoyed me.
The opening of the movie?
The opening, yeah. That thing went on and on and on. We were really into the film. It got me adrenaline going. I'm like, right off the bat, we're like, blimey, this is just going to be intense all the way through. And then, no, she wakes up. It's a dream. So that whole 20 minutes is practically disregarded.
I'm going to defend that scene. As soon as you're finished, I'm going to defend that scene.
The point that it's trying to make could have been made in a 2-minute scene. It did not need to
I'll give you that. It did go on too long, but I think the purpose of that scene was that he was trying to establish who Laurie was as a person, what mental state she was, right at the beginning of the movie when she wakes up from that dream. And I'll give you that it did go on for too long, but when she does wake up for that dream, automatically, boom, we know who we're dealing with. We know that this is a really fucked up person, and we're gonna have to walk in her shoes throughout the rest of the movie. And I think that's the big mistake people make. Everybody always says they hate that opening dream sequence, and I think going into this movie like that, it's going to set the tone for the rest of the movie, and you're not going to buy into it. Whereas if you go into this movie and you just stay with that dream sequence and then buy into what Laurie is as a character as soon as that dream, and that you needed that to show that this is a character that's had like mental damage. She has these nightmares, not just once, but probably over and over and over again. And so that scene kind of sets up who we're dealing with as a character. And then I think after that, you just kind of buy into it, like what's going on with her through the rest of the movie. And so by the time she finally does meet up with Michael, and she doesn't meet up with Michael until like the end of the movie, it's like an explosion. It's crazy, how she's just as insane as Michael is almost in the movie. And we've never seen a Laurie like this. And I'll say the Laurie in Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 is 10 times more interesting than the Laurie in the original Halloween 2. So yeah, that's my defense. And you're talking about Brad Dourif. I just wanted to say that scene with Brad Dourif and him losing his daughter is like the most emotional scene to me out of the whole franchise. And it's nice to see some emotion in a series that should have a lot of emotion given what these characters go through. And I think Brad Dourif, thank God, he nailed it. That was like almost Oscar worthy the way he acted that scene. I remember watching that scene and crying.
Made a good Loomis.
So go ahead.
Mm-hmm.
I think Brad Dourif would have made a good Loomis as well.
He would have. He would have been a much better Loomis, I think.
My problem with your defense of that opening is that we get so much in it that doesn't even relate to Laurie's character, like him breaking out of the ambulance. It's like she's not even involved in that. And
that was kind of out of nowhere, wasn't it?
So all of that feeds into that dream stuff that actually doesn't have any relevance to her character. So what she's going through, we want to see that she's now living in a complete nightmare. That this is her main concern, her main worry, her main fears. That's a 2-minute sequence. Yeah. And then you find out it's a dream. But you get me so invested. You get me so invested in what she's going through, in what's happening to her right now, to then suddenly say that actually all of that was a dream. Now we're starting the film. No, you've got me too invested by that point. So you've just crapped all over that. It's essentially like what they did in what was that crappy American, was it Dallas or something? It's famous for having a character that was out of the series for a whole season or something, and then the actor wanted to come back, so they decided to have him come out of the shower, and the whole season was a dream. It's like all that investment you've put into everything else that's been going on has just been crapped away. That's what it feels like with this. You got 15 to 20 minute sequence, which is essentially like 1/5 of the film, 1/6 of the film, and really only the point that it's trying to make, which could be summed up in 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Totally
if you listen to the commentary during that scene, and Rob Zombie actually states that was like when Myers is in the van and he kicks open the door and gets out. According to the script, that really happened. But I agree with you, Bryan, because the editing of that whole sequence should have been, no question, like, okay, I know that this is real and I know that this is a dream, but somehow those two scenes got like mixed in, and I guess I blame Rob Zombie or whoever edited that part, because according to Zombie, that really happened. That wasn't part of the dream. What was part of the dream was as soon as Laurie Strode wakes up in the hospital, from like when she was asleep, I think at the beginning, and then you see Nights in White Satin, that's when the dream actually starts. And I blame the editing on that. I think if they would have maybe edited it in a different way so you know exact, because you shouldn't have to listen to the commentary to understand, what's going on in the movie. But so I think maybe because I listen to the commentary, when I see that scene, I think, okay, this is real. Myers has escaped, and then he's just going off. So, but I'm glad we're having a good discussion about it. So.
One other thing I wanted to discuss before we move off of Rob Zombie, because this always has bugged me, and this is one of the things what I would use to defend the fact that Rob Zombie, I think, is just a really indulgent director. Why is it that we can only get the director's cuts when we can't get the theatrical cuts? When on both movies, in my opinion, the theatrical cut's superior.
Yep.
Because the director's cut in the first movie, they insert the rape scene. In the director's cut in the second movie, they change the ending to where the ending is nowhere near as good. Like, because in the theatrical cut, she kills Michael Myers in the thing, comes out with his mask, and now that's okay. Now she's evil and now she's psychotic. But in the director's cut, he comes out, die, stabs Loomis, and then gets shot to death.
So stupid.
Gets shot to death like this for like 15 minutes. So it bugs me that he's that indulgent in his director's cuts, which everybody pretty much agrees is the inferior films. That's the only versions you can get.
Yeah, I got the Canadian, the Alliance release from Canada, that double feature actually has the theatrical cuts, and that's the only versions of the movie that I watch. I just watch. Well, I actually kind of made my own cut of Rob Zombie's Halloween 2 because there's a lot of great character moments with Laurie Strode that are cut out of the theatrical cut, but the theatrical cut has by far the best ending. I love that ending much more. Just visually, I like it more. Story-wise, I like it more. It's just a much better ending. Michael Myers doesn't talk in it. It's great. So yeah, get that if you want to get that, Cody. Get that the Alliance release. That'll have both theatrical cuts.
Gotcha.
Yep. All right, I guess we can move on to our last thing, top 3 films. And before we jump into this, this is by far the most successful stream I have ever had on my channel. And I'm sure Halloween's, and the timings. But, I mean, I just want to thank everybody for jumping in to this chat with us. And a day late because I know we were supposed to go on yesterday. But thank you, everybody in the chat that just jumped in here and provided this the great conversation and everything. It's awesome. So this has been a great episode.
Awesome.
Last thing we're going to talk about is our top 3 Halloween films. And Bryan, we'll start with you. What's your number 3 favorite Halloween film?
My number 3 and my number 2, I depending what mood I'm in, but I think I'm going to settle on Halloween 4, Return of Michael Myers. And if we hadn't have had Halloween 5 and 6, then I probably definitely would put this at number 2.
Yeah.
But because they kind of go the whole Thorn trilogy route, the knowledge of those films' existence kind of brings it down a bit. But I think you could watch this film, you could watch Part 4 and never bother with Part 5 and 6, and it would still stand on its own.
Oh, definitely.
Just because I just think it's a good commentary on the nature of evil and the question of evil. Is it genetic? Can it pass to someone just because they are linked to that person? And I think that's the question it raises towards the end of the film, and that's what I like. Horror films work best when actually they're talking about something. They're asking questions. They're discussing something a bit deeper underneath all the bloodshed. And I think the 4th film does do that. It has things in there that you can chew on if you want to. And if you don't want to see that stuff and you just want to see a slasher film, that's there too. But for me, I'll go with Halloween 4.
Yeah. Before I go to Cody, Mike Johnston has a really interesting top 3, and I like that top 3. So, and his top 3 is Halloween, Rob Zombie's Halloween 2, and Curse of Michael Myers. That's interesting as hell. Cody, what's your number 3?
My number 3 is H2O. I will admit right off the bat, a lot of it has to do with the fact that was the one that I kind of grew up with. I know you've spoken many times, Lee, about a lot of your love for the 4th ones because you had the experience of seeing it on the big screen for the first time and everything like that. And I have a lot of that with H2O. I think that it was a great, story-wise, I think it was a great direction to go. I loved having Jamie Lee Curtis back to kind of wrap up that storyline. I really enjoy the other characters like Josh Hartnett, Michelle Williams, and the girl from Nash Bridges and all of that.
Yeah.
I'm still entertained by the movie when it's not focused on Laurie Strode and Michael. So I think that's what I was getting at with those characters. I think that it opens up really good, and you get the callback with the nurse from the first two movies. And especially, I mean, you can't say anything more about the third act of that movie. It's awesome.
Yeah,
it's one of the highlights of the entire franchise. From the moment, which we've already said, that she has that axe and she's screaming, Michael! Like, from that point to the end, that movie is just a thrill ride to me. I love revisiting it. I think canon-wise, in my head, that's the end of the series. Like, her taking off Michael's head and just being done with it. Fuck it, I'm over this. That is my ending to Halloween. So I love revisiting that movie. I'm a constant defender of it. Yeah, that's my number 3.
Okay, my number 3 is Curse of Michael Myers. And there's quite a few reasons I like that one. First off, my theater experience of that one was fantastic. That third act to me is one of the most effective third acts. With Paul Rudd beating Michael down with the pipe, and then hearing Loomis, and I think a lot of this too is there's a sadness because we knew that Loomis had already died when this movie came out, and so I just had this affection for Loomis throughout when I was watching it, and then hearing Loomis's bone-chilling scream at the end of the movie, it was sad, it just made me feel like, God, that's the last thing I'm going to hear from Loomis, and it's just it broke my heart. And the atmosphere in Halloween 6, I think, is almost unmatched. Even people that don't like Halloween 6, you said but it does have great atmosphere, and they're like, oh yeah, that has amazing atmosphere. As far if you compare Halloween 6's atmosphere to H2O's atmosphere, they look like two completely different movies. So the cinematography and it just feels it feels cold too. And if you look at the behind the scenes on that, when they filmed this movie, when Jamie is out in that barn, you can see her breath. And the actress that did that scene, she said that it was just that was the coldest she's ever witnessed in her whole life. It was just freezing, and that just adds to the atmosphere of it. There's so many things I love about Part 6. Even though it does have some crazy story elements there, but the characters there's some great, even the characters that you hate, like John Strode. He played him to perfection. You loved to hate him. He was horrible. Great soundtrack. Just so many things. I think that was the last one with Alan Howarth too, actually. So it feels, I think that 6 is closing a chapter as far as the feel of the original Halloween. It's got the theme and everything. So yeah, that's my number 3. My number 3 is Curse of Michael Myers. Bryan, what's your number 2?
My number 2 is actually H2O. All the reasons Cody said. To me, it's a good trilogy is 1978 movie, Halloween 2, and then H2O, and it's a complete story.
Yeah.
It's done, it's dusted. You don't need to take in any of the other films for it. That's your complete story. Boom, whack his head off. The end. That whole nonsense at the beginning of Resurrection, it's painful.
Yeah.
It's literally painful to watch. And there's something that this franchise has a habit of doing is crapping all over good work that it's done. It did it with Halloween 4. It came back with 5, and I can't remember the name of the main woman in it, but they just kill her in Halloween
Rachel.
5.
Oh God, we didn't even talk about Rachel. That was
not alive.
Worst moment in this franchise.
Oh, a really good character, that they built up, a really good relationship between her and Jamie. They kill her to replace her with Tina. How does that make sense?
She's one of my favorite characters in the whole franchise too.
Mm-hmm.
It's a shame.
And then they do the same thing again with H2O and Resurrection. But yeah, so Resurrection's a load of crap. But H2O for me, like Cody says, that last half hour, the last 25 minutes, it's a confrontation. It's an epic confrontation, which, you feel the the emotion, the intensity of all those feelings that have bubbled to the surface in Laurie Strode for all those years, kind of keeping it suppressed, and finally just saying, you know what, enough of this crap. Either I die facing him, or I take him down somehow. And I love all that moment. And I do also love the intro as well. You know, as much as we said, it kind of feels very Scream-esque. One of the things that Scream taught me, and one of the things that H2O taught me about how to construct a good scene in a slasher film, in a horror film, is this thing that they do in both films. They do it in the Drew Barrymore opening scene, and they do it here. It's when you have a character who is about to get killed, or who's being attacked by the main slasher, is to put salvation just within their grasp.
Yeah.
So in Scream, it was the parents. She can see her parents coming to the front door. They're literally just within reach, but she can't quite get to them. And that just makes that moment so much more tense. And it's the same here with this woman. She's in the house. Myers is attacking her, and she can see the police officers.
Yeah, they're right there,
just out the window, and that builds tension. It creates tension because her salvation is just within grasp, but she can't quite get to it. And that's something I noticed through watching both this film and Scream. About just if you want a tip about how to write a good scene that builds tension like that, that's a good way to
Very
go.
Well
yeah,
said,
I think it's a really good film. I think it lags a bit in the midsection because not much is happening from Myers' standpoint, but I do think it's a very good conclusion to Laurie Strode's story.
Absolutely. Cody, what's your number 2?
Bryan, are you ready for my number 2? The moment is here. Halloween 3, Season of the Witch.
Woo! Drops mic.
Just kidding, I need this.
End of stream.
I love the hell out of Season of the Witch. I did not see it until last year, this time, for the first time, because I always heard opinions that Bryan's going to defend here very soon, that it's a ridiculous movie, that it ruins, the franchise, it's horrible, why does this thing even exist? And you know what? The only crime that movie ever did was be entitled Halloween, because I swear if it was just titled simply Season of the Witch, that movie would be hailed as a classic. I honestly believe that. I love everything about the movie. I love the score, one of the most underrated scores ever. I love the characters. I mean, you got Tom Atkins. That dude's awesome. The story is really cool, really creepy. The movie's actually creepy. It's one of the creepier installments in the franchise. The whole concept of just murdering all the children that trick or treat is kind of, it's crazy. I mean, of course, you got the song "Happy Happy Halloween." Everybody loves that. Yeah, I mean, it's such a great '80s style standalone horror movie that totally just bathes in the season of Halloween and the feeling of Halloween and the atmosphere of Halloween, just the holiday itself. That it's right up with the original Halloween now. From now on, I'm going to pop that movie in every single year. Oh, yeah. I'll defend it to the death, and I'm about to defend it here very soon, I think. But I just love that movie. I'm as much as people love the fact that Myers came back in 4, and it is probably better for the franchise's longevity that happened. I'm morbidly curious that if they would have stayed the course with their plan to do the anthology films, what kind of movie we would have got.
Yeah, I just watched Halloween 3 last night again. I watch it every year, and it just gets better. And I was like Bryan, when I first saw this movie back in the day, I hated it. I stopped it. I didn't even finish the movie. And then, like, a few years later, I was like, I'm curious. I'm just going to watch this movie all the way through. And it just clicked. I totally removed Michael Myers from the equation, and I watched it as just because it feels like a John Carpenter movie, even though Tommy Lee Wallace directed it. And that score is the most underrated horror score in history. I'm saying that right now. That is such an effective score. And I will even say this. I think Terminator borrowed a little bit from Halloween 3. If you listened, because Halloween 3 came out before Terminator. If you listen to that score in the very beginning, it almost like eerily sounds like the Terminator. It's crazy. But yeah, I love the score so much. I love the Stacey Nelkin. She's one of my favorite like females in the Halloween series. Tom fucking Atkins is Tom Atkins in that movie. He's just amazing. And the ending is one of the best endings out of like, it's one of my favorite horror endings. You know,
Oh, yeah.
because it's like,
Stop
dude,
it! Stop it! Stop it! Stop it!
you almost want the old guy to get away with killing all the kids on the planet. And they do it. It's great. I love it. So I'm so glad you brought that up, man. You get me excited talking about Halloween 3.
Damn right. We're going to do a
damn
commentary
right.
eventually. It's going to happen.
I'm going to give you my number 2 now. My number 2 is Halloween 4. And I'll bring Kelly Marie Farrell in the chat. She brought up a big reason why I love Halloween 4. There's a scene at the end when they're on the rooftop, and that scene is directed so well because at that point, Jamie and Rachel, you know, they are in deep shit, and on a roof alone without Myers, it's pretty damn dangerous and it's pretty damn scary, and you're just scared that one of them's gonna fall off the roof. And then all of a sudden, right over the ridge of the roof, pops up Myers. And I was just like, oh my God, now they're really fucked. So it's just that scene right there encompasses what's so great about Halloween 4. And I can't not mention the opening of Halloween 4 because it is the most like Halloweenish, the holiday like scene I've ever seen. Like, you know, you got just this big open field. And there's this like chill in the air, and there's this you can hear, like if you turn up your speakers, you can hear the music, and it's just kind of building, and it kind of sets the tone of the movie. Like this is gonna be a ride. It's gonna be dark, and it's not gonna be funny at all. You know, it's like probably one of the most serious Halloween movies, and it deals with innocence too because Danielle Harris was a 10-year-old kid in that movie, and you know how kids can ruin movies, but she was great in this. Like she was the anchor of the whole movie, and at the end, we get like one of the best endings like out of the whole franchise with Myers. That's my favorite ending, just because of the reaction I had from it, which is what I opened the stream with. That ending is just bone chilling. Loomis's reaction is bone chilling. It's so good. So Bryan, what's your number 1? And you cannot put down Halloween 3. I will not allow it.
Season of the Witch.
Yes.
He's been trolling us for a day and a half. That's what the truth is.
No, that film is. Yeah. Obviously, it's the 1978 Halloween.
Yes.
It's just. I don't think anyone on this panel is under any illusions that Halloween 78 isn't going to be the one that we all say. Should we just agree on that now?
Yeah, I that's my number 1. Is that your number 1, Cody?
Oh, hell no. I'm just kidding. Yes, it is.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Okay,
Yeah,
cool. So we can just have a discussion about the first one then.
It's just, I mean, how much more can we say? You know, it's a classic, and it set the tone and the benchmark for slasher films throughout the 80s. And I just think often people are at the most creative when they have very little resources. And, you know, just Carpenter had next to no budget for this. And he took it and he said he'd do it, but on the condition he got to put his name on the title. You know, and he knew the cachet that would carry, providing he could pull this off, if he could make something good. But I think, again, like I say, you have no budget. I think that forces you to be creative. You know, we live in an age now where we just throw CGI at the screen. We throw money at every problem, and actually that's not creativity. That's just covering holes. And when you have no money and you just have a team of actors and a crew, and you have to come up with something, you can be quite inventive, and that's what Carpenter and his crew do here. It's just, you know, it's actually a bloodless film. You know, for a slasher film, there's not a right lot of blood. It's mainly about character. It's a character-driven thing. It's a suspense-driven thing. You know, and a lot of the stylistic choices that Carpenter gets praised for in the film are actually born out of this not having a budget. He couldn't do loads of setups with over the shoulder shots and getting you wide, getting your mid shots, getting you over the shoulder. No, he couldn't do that because we were on a time scale with a very limited budget. So you know what we're going to do? We're going to shoot everything in a wide, and that actually feeds into the atmosphere of the film and how once you're on these big wides, you're searching the corners of the frame for what might be lurking, and it just worked. It's one of those moments in film history where, for whatever reason, through circumstance and creativity, everything came together to make something that we can now safely call a classic. Had they thrown a lot of money at this thing when it was first made, I'm not so sure it'd be as good as it is. But yeah, it's a classic. Michael Myers is a great movie monster. And Jamie Lee Curtis was a brilliant find. So
perfectly said.
Amen.
Cody, go ahead, buddy. What do you think's so great about the first Halloween?
One word: simplicity.
Thank you.
Simplicity. That's one of the things I really harped on my review, which eventually I'll do a revisited because it's back when I did short reviews. But what I love so much about it is how simple it is. I mean, they gave John Carpenter, they said, hey, go make a horror movie, set it on Halloween. Beyond that, whatever. Go do what you want. So they had to come up with this story, which is in itself very simple. Kid loses his mind, kills his sister, spends years in an insane asylum, and he breaks out on Halloween night. There's your movie. And then you get just enough characters where you can follow them, where it's not overbearing. You get, simple characters. Laurie Strode, just the nice girl next door. You get the slutty friend. You get, all the things that are kind of tropes in Hollywood and in slashers now, but back in the day, it was just like, okay, we need some simple characters. And I love this, like a lot of the things that Bryan was really talking about, like creativity, which I'm a big fan of. When like Deadpool is kind of a recent example of that to a degree. When you're forced to be creative because of your budget, like some of the things I love so much about the movie is things like that. Like my favorite shot in the entire film is when Laurie Strode is standing in front of that door and it's just darkness. And then they have like that one little 1 or 2 watt bulb that just kind of slowly opens up and you just see Michael's face behind her. And just simple little things like that, just a little light bulb. And it's one of the most effective scenes you're going to find in slasher history. And it birthed the genre that we all know and love, the reason why we're here talking today.
Yeah. Michael Myers is a killer shark. No. What else can you say about Halloween? You know what? I think the big thing is Halloween is Halloween. It's every Halloween, October 31st, this is the number one movie that most houses across the country are playing. And and it's not just because it's called Halloween. It's because of what's inside, The opening shot, they go through this house and you don't know who it is, and then when it all comes to an end in that opening scene and that mask comes off, and everybody can remember the first time they saw Halloween, and if they didn't know anything, when you saw that it was a 6-year-old child that did that horrible thing, it freaks you out. It sent a chill down your spine, and it wasn't just that, it's the score that went along with it. Everything about Halloween, it's like it's one of the most, and it's a perfect film to me. It really is. Like there's nothing wrong with the movie whatsoever. It has perfect characters. It has a perfect score. It has the perfect director. It's one of the few movies that just, I don't know, it's like lightning in a bottle. Sometimes I think John Carpenter just got lucky, like sometimes luck plays a part. Like Jaws, we never saw the shark in the movie, and that was an accident. And maybe some of that played a part in Halloween, maybe because they only had $320,000 to spend on this movie, so they had limitations. They had 2 weeks to shoot it, and maybe that just lit a fire under everybody's ass. John Carpenter was capable. He is a great director, especially back then. So sometimes I think that. Sometimes I think maybe Halloween was just like, if they had a bigger budget, if they had more time, would we have gotten that movie? You know, if he had time to like second guess himself, would we have gotten that movie? Maybe we wouldn't have. So I think if you didn't have that first movie, you wouldn't have the sequels. You know, it's just so important to everybody, and it's the reason why this stream is, I'm getting more. It's not because of me. It's because of this movie. It's because everybody loves this movie so much that if they're scrolling YouTube and they see Halloween and Myers' face on there, I want to click on that, you know? And I would bet that half the people watching this probably don't even know who we are. They're here for Myers. So that's what Halloween is.
And you know what's funny too is like harping back to what you were saying about it being a perfect film, and that's absolutely right. It's like it's one of those movies where you watch and you're like, is there anything I would change about this? Is there anything that I could possibly improve by watching it and being critique? And at least for my answer, no, there's nothing. And it's one of those things too. Like if we were to, I would assume all three of us would agree. At least for me, if I was to rank all of the movies of the big three, and you guys know that those that do know me, that I'm a Freddy fanatic, and Chucky is very close second for me. So Myers is like number 3. Halloween would be at the top of that list.
Yeah.
Like if I was to rank all the Jasons, all the Chuckies, all the Freddys, all the Texas Chainsaw Massacres and everything, Halloween would still reign supreme.
Yeah, absolutely.
Same, yeah.
CP even said that, like, he's a Freddy. I mean, he's a Jason fanatic, and he even put Halloween as his number 1 movie. You can't. It's undeniable. Yeah. It's just it's a perfect horror film. So
yes.
that's. Oh, say that again, Brian.
I ranked. I reviewed all of the Nightmare on Elm Street films, and I've reviewed all of the Halloween films. And if I do an average score for the whole franchise, take each film, divide it by however many there are, my Halloween ranking actually is lower than a Nightmare on Elm Street. So on average, I think Nightmare on Elm Street puts out better movies, but that first Halloween film is better than any Nightmare on Elm Street film.
Yeah.
I wholeheartedly agree, and this is coming from a Freddy fanatic.
Yep. That's the power of Halloween. That's it. And I think that's a good note to end this thing. We went for 2 hours, guys, on this, almost on the nose. So
sweet.
This was a fun episode. If Scream Stream's probably not going to be around for like a month because I'm about to go knee deep into this move within the next week. I start a new job in a new state, so and I will not be in my house for like a month. So once I get into that house, I got to get everything set up and everything. But so I'm glad we had this one opportunity to do a Scream stream before then, and then a month from now, I'm hoping like before Halloween, we can do another Scream stream and come up with something. But this was great. I mean, I really enjoyed the hell out of this. We didn't have any hiccups along the way. So I want to thank Cody and I want to thank Bryan. You guys were impeccable. You guys were amazing. I really appreciate all the great conversations you guys gave. Please, I already have the links to their channel in the info box. So please, if you can, go down there and, just click on their channels and give them a sub. They deserve it. They're amazing. And thank you guys so much. Bryan, any last words?
Well, I also do a podcast actually called Brits on Flicks on iTunes, and we're doing for our Halloween episode, we're doing a review of John Carpenter's Prince of Darkness. So
nice.
Check that out when it eventually comes out, because I think you'll like it. So.
And Cody's in the middle of a certain franchise right now. What do you got going, Cody?
I'm in the middle of 2 franchises. Well, actually, you know what? Technically, I'm in the middle of 3 franchises. I just dropped Texas Chainsaw Massacre 3 today. I'm trying to do Texas Chainsaw Massacre and Child's Play at the same time leading up to October, because there's 2 new movies coming out for both those franchises, which, unbeknownst to me, I guess Leatherface is going to be coming out a lot sooner than that because it comes out on DirecTV. So that one might be kind of spliced in the middle of my Texas Chainsaw review series, but I'm also doing the Hatchet series. But I'm going to be doing, I got Bride of Chucky, and I have Texas Chainsaw: The Next Generation already in the editing stages, so those will be coming out soon. Hatchet 2 is in the editing stages, so that'll be coming out soon. Of course, I'm going to review Leatherface and whenever that drops, so that, like I said, that'll be kind of spliced in there. I've kind of taken a break on it, but I was also doing Stephen King movies kind of leading up to it, but I'm still in kind of a Stephen King mood, so I'll probably, for sure, I'm going to review the original It miniseries at some point, and I might do one or two more Stephen King movies. So that's kind of my focus right now, along with any new movie that I get a chance to see, which right now isn't too many, but hopefully maybe Kingsman: The Golden Circle. I think that comes out tomorrow. Well, I'm going to try to see that, but no promises.
Awesome. And I want to give a shout out to Amanda from Aesthetic Star. She's a good friend, and she noted in the chat that she would love a Scream stream around Halloween. So I'm going to try to make that happen. I really want to make that happen anyway. And definitely check out. She's on Killer Flicks, and she is a hell of an artist. Like, she actually drew all the horror icons recently, and they're fucking amazing. So
sweet.
Go on, if you're not a member of Killer Flicks, go on there, become a member. And we actually have quite a few like really talented artists on there. We have people that write scripts on there. We got just so much talent in that group. So, and we have a lot of great horror discussion. I have coming up that I've already pre-recorded. I'll let you guys in on it. 31 Days of October is still happening, even though I'm going to be out of pocket for a while. I have 2 to 3 guests per week, most weeks 3. And these gentlemen right here are part of that. And I've already filmed a few of the episodes because I want to get it out to you guys, because 31 Days of October is always really fun. It's interactive. So look for that to still happen. It's definitely going to happen somehow, some way. And thank you guys, everybody in the chat. Thank you for watching. Really appreciate it. And I hope everybody has a safe and happy weekend that's coming up. So, guys, thank you so much for watching, and I'm going to close it out now. Let me find my little stop stream. Oh, here we go. Thanks, guys. Have a great night. Boom.
See ya.
See ya. We're